Hey, y'all. So, we're going to talk about the theme in our story, The Book of Unknown Americans. You guys are going to respond to this question here in just a moment. So, the deal is that this question is actually pretty important. This is a PGSLO, which stands for Professional Growth and Student Learning Outcome, which you don't need to remember. But you do need to know that we do 6 of these a year and that we use these as a measure of your progress throughout 8th grade with your writing. So, basically, when you answer today's question, it needs to be a fully formed thought. You need to pull out all the stops, use the best spelling, grammar, and punctuation humanly possible, and make sure to follow the very specific instructions. So the instructions say to be sure to use complete sentences, correct spelling and grammar. And yes, you do need to have about a paragraph, so 4+ sentences for your response. So the question today is how, since we've been talking about theme, is the theme of identity revealed in the story, The Book of the Unknown Americans. So if we go back to our story, and I want to do just kind of a recap with you guys really quick. I don't want to leave you high and dry. To figure out the theme, again, we look at the explicit things that are directly said by the characters, and we look at the implicit things, the things that aren't said out loud, but that the characters might believe, or that the characters show us they believe through their actions. So through the actions and the feelings and the thoughts of the characters, we're going to get to see this. So for this question, we are very specifically looking for some examples. And because it's been about a week since we last read the story, I want to go through some of those examples for you so you can pick one or two and make them your own. So during the story, Book of Unknown Americans, let me see if I can, I think if I just use this. There we go. During our story, The Book of Unknown Americans, the first thing that we see is that our narrator, his name is Mayor, is really struggling with this concept of being American. He says that, and this is a direct quote from the text, that I felt more American than anything. So he moved to the United States from Panama when he was less than a year old. So he doesn't remember Panama. And his brother gives him all the memories. His dad says one thing, Bullies say another one. But he says that he feels more American than anything. And that's because he grew up in the U.S. He spent most of his life in the U.S. So another way that we see identity defined is actually by the dad, who reassures Mayor that the idea that if you are born somewhere, it's in your bones. So he says, he assures him, don't worry, you're Panamanian, it's in your bones. Okay, so the next example, I want to move this as quickly as I can. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my video short today for you guys. Another example that we saw that identity was defined in this story was by the bullies. And the bullies tell him to go back to where you came from, and they tell him to go back through the canal, talking about the Panama Canal. So to the bullies, they're defining identity by where you're born, the idea that you can't ever change your identity, and they're also defining it by sort of a racist outlook. So there's some racism going on there as well. Our narrator still isn't sure who he is. What's interesting is that they'd always planned to go back to Panama, but our narrator starts saying that they settled down and made a life in the United States. And eventually they become American citizens. However, even though the narrator becomes an American citizen, at the same time, he still feels conflicted. And that's because different people are trying to tell him different things about his identity. So the next thing that happens is they plan to go back to Panama, and oh my goodness gracious, his mom is super excited. She doesn't come out and say, oh, I'm so excited. No, instead she comes out and packs 7 pairs of shoes and packs weeks ahead of time. So Celia, aka the mom, is excited to return to Panama. She overpacks, that's, how do you spell that? Overpacks, spends hours on the phone with her sister, and she packs weeks in advance. So think about what that might be telling you about how the mom views her identity. They became American citizens, so don't forget that. But think about what that says about the mom's identity. So then, unfortunately, the dad calls the class president to tell them that they're going back for this high school reunion. And the class president says, he's pretty ugly back at him. In a lot of my classes, my students were like, he's such a jerk. So he says, we didn't know that the gringo royalty was coming. And he says, we'll have to roll out the red carpet then. So according to the class president, the idea is that they moved away. They aren't Panamanian anymore, which is what you call somebody from Panama. So there's another concept. And the class president's probably acting like a jerk for a reason. So finally, they decide not to go back on that trip. And instead, they decide to go back for the mom's birthday, like a year later. Unfortunately, September 11th happens. And our narrator and everybody in this building kind of go through that together. And what's interesting is the family now identifies as both Panamanians and Americans. So this absolutely affects them. The family is scared. They feel unsafe. The mom, Celia even says, we moved to this place because it was safe. Where are we supposed to go now? They feel sad. And the whole reason they feel like this is because America has become their home. Finally, there's this awesome scene. They never do get to go back to Panama, but the dad does take them out on a beach. And the beach isn't quite Panama, but the mom says it is a little piece of Panama. So the family is homesick, goes to the beach, and the beach reminds them of home. And what's cool is home, I'll put that in quotes, home now means Panama and the US. So I want you guys to pick some of these examples or pick your own example as you're working on your writing assignment. And what do you think? Because I can't tell you how exactly the story reveals theme, because it's going to be up to you to decide what the author is actually saying about identity. So our author, her name's Celia Enriquez, is saying something about identity. I want to know, how is that theme sort of revealed in this? What do different characters say and do and think that shows this theme of identity? If you are getting really stuck and you're confused, the easiest way for me to say this is the main message of this story is all about finding out who you are. And I want to know, how does the author do this? How does the author show us how you find out who you are? What does this mean to you? All right, guys, good luck. Let me know if you have questions. And remember to write the very best that you can for your response. Good luck and knock 'em dead. All right, bye.